Hello, welcome to Cerulean Arts Gallery. Today we're speaking with Frederic Kaplan in conjunction with his Cerulean Arts Collective exhibition, which is on view now through November 10th. Hello, Fred.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Fine, thanks for being here.
Very
So,
well.
show is definitely a departure for you, so please tell us about it and yourself.
Absolutely. Well, for the past number of years, I've mostly been doing work that has been inspired by physics and astrophysics, especially relativity ideas. Um, his, my background is I used to be an illustrator. So this new show is a big departure for me from what I've been doing the past few years, these sort of physics-based images. Um, these new works um, sort of draw upon my experience as an illustrator. They tell a story. There's a narrative behind each one of these pieces. And it all began with a painting called Hammer of Justice. And then everything kind of developed from there. We'll see Hammer of Justice shortly. Right now, these drawings that you're seeing, the two on the left, top and bottom, were done with pencil. The other four were done with ballpoint pen, uh, a Bic ballpoint pen, interestingly, like this. Uh, it has a look a little bit like silver point, which I really like. So they lend themselves well to, or ballpoint pen lends itself well to intimate kind of a treatment. If I want to incorporate a lot of detail, I can do that. And there's a textural quality to it, in my opinion, as well.
So, Fred, can you talk a bit about the subject matter?
Oh, I can do that. Yes. Well, they're all cages, as you'll notice. So some of the cages have eggs in them, and some of the cages have books in them. The ones with eggs in them are actually called cage one, cage two. And the egg represents how women are caged by virtue of the eggs that they carry around with them. So our society is increasingly making it more and more of a prison for women by managing their choices. The other three with the books in them relate to the fact that there have been a lot of efforts in the last couple of years at censoring material, books as well as other material. I was just reading something today, as a matter of fact. I forget where it was, but a school district out west, or a library out west, had decided to move a book about indigenous peoples, indigenous Americans, to the fiction section, although the book is factual. So these things disturb me, and I think they should disturb everybody. So over here, oh, okay. The painting on the left is called Living Together. Uh, the building on the far left has a window that's illuminated with cold blue light. One's below it with a warm reddish light. Kind of like our society is now divided into red and blue. But this signifies the idea that maybe we can all live in the same apartment building together and do that on a friendly basis, just like we can all live in the same country together and have disagreements, but still live together in spite of those disagreements. To the right of this painting is something called uh, Tools of the Trade. Again, it's the red painting with the the clothes hangers, and it's called Tools of the Trade again because we're returning to an era when those were the tools of the abortionist trade. But this is about that fact that we're going back to that, to the dark ages of this country, basically. The painting to the right of that with the gavel, that was the first painting that precipitated all of this entire show. And my departure from doing work that really didn't comment on anything going on around me to works that constantly commented on things going on around me. So this is my response to the Dobbs decision in 2022. the Supreme Court decision that struck down Roe versus Wade and made abortions, well, Roe versus Wade made abortions legal nationwide. And with Dobbs, that was no longer the case. Now it was left up to individual states to make that decision. And as we all know, from looking around us, there have been some pretty horrific outcomes to that. So the gavel in this case is smashing a woman's right to abortion, that broken object you see on the bottom, if you're not able to understand it, is the traditional symbol for a female, a circle with a plus sign beneath it. The piece to the right of that is an oil paint on paper. It's called Christ Was a Jew. It's one of several pieces I've done with this theme. And it addresses the fact that I think many Christians aren't aware of that fact, and many people aren't aware of that fact, that Christ actually was a Jew and a rabbi, a teacher during his time. And so every Christian on this planet owes a debt of gratitude to Jews rather than their approbation, which is unfortunately sometimes the case.
So Fred, the
Yes,
hammer of justice, did that like then prompt you to do the rest of the work in the
it did.
show?
Well, in a way, yes. It began actually with a little doodle I did in my sketchbook. I was just so angry. And you could tell that looking at the sketch, because the sketch had a very angry quality about it. And then it produced this painting. And once I did this painting, I decided, I couldn't remain quiet anymore. I couldn't remain mute in the face of what I was seeing around me. I had to use my art to somehow express my concerns about what I was seeing. So that precipitated all the rest that you see in this show. This piece, the triptych, the three large panels, is called Judgments. To the left of that are three small panels. They were the studies I did for the large triptych, actually. The one at the top is based on the characters of Charles Schulz, which we're all familiar with, I think. It's called Good Grief, because good grief, the Supreme Court now made it legal for people to walk around carrying the guns in public, making it that much easier for young people to get themselves shot and for young people to acquire guns and shoot other young people or older people. This painting, this panel, is called Yellow Christina. It's based on a painting by Paul Gauguin called Yellow Christ. And you'll notice there's a traditional Christian cross in each of these, and there's a figure being crucified. And the reason for that is that because much of this, what's been going on, has been driven by Christian right-wing extremists. I have nothing against Christians, by the way, just so you understand that, or Christianity itself. I do have something that I object to regarding those who take such extreme views and try to impose their will upon everybody else. So this is one example of that attempt to impose their will on everybody else. This piece is called Pride in America. It's derived from a character developed by Keith Haring. For those who don't know, the colors are the colors of the Pride flag. And the two sets of figures on the right, the colors used there represent trans individuals. Again, something that the courts and our society, or at least a segment of our society, is demonizing. So the triptych, the large triptych, is a further development of those three images. It's the completion of the theme. And the building that you see to the right of the cross in the center panel, that is the Supreme Court building, from whence all these questionable decisions have been coming in the last couple of years. The portrait in the center panel, incidentally, of the central figure, the yellow pregnant lady, was taken. It's a portrait taken directly from Munch, who painted a very famous painting called The Scream, which probably most everybody is familiar with, has seen a reproduction of. So the image was taken from a painting by Paul Gauguin, Yellow Christ. The layout is very similar to Yellow Christ, and the portrait was taken from Edward Munch's The Scream. These figures are modern figures, but again, there were 3 figures in the Gauguin painting, so I was using that. Plus, I chose a triptych as the format for this, incidentally, because it's a traditional Christian art form, the triptych. And you'll notice there are 3 figures in each of these panels, which further emphasizes that idea. And this is poor Charlie Brown, who got shot by his friend. And we read about these things, unfortunately, or hear them on the news just about every day. Teenagers and kids getting a hold of guns, or gay people or trans people being ostracized and demonized. This has a very personal meaning to me because I have a family member who is engaged to a trans individual, and the family member is bi. So I'm very familiar with the emotional impact of what we've been doing to people like that, and how they feel. How depressing it can be for some of them. This is a charcoal drawing. We sold the painting called Christ Was a Jew. This was the charcoal drawing I did that was based on. The nail, incidentally, has a kind of an interesting background. I actually borrowed the nail. I stole the nail from Salvador Dali. I remember when I did this, I was remembering I had a vision in my head of a painting I had seen of his as a kid that had a nail done very simply like that. So I took that from Dali and stuck it in my drawing. Most of these pieces in this show, incidentally, are, at least in part, derived from artworks by other great masters of usually the past. Picasso said something. He said, let me see if I can remember exactly his words. He said, "Good artists borrow, great artists steal." So I'm stealing from Picasso by stealing from everybody else. And my goal is to become a great artist and steal from everybody. The painting on the left in this group is almost a duplicate of a painting by Lionel Feininger. He did a painting called After the Meeting, but I've replaced the building in his painting with the White House, and the figure I'm replacing with a very specific individual's figure, Donald Trump. It's called Pussy Grabber Wants to Live Here. And it has sort of I guess, a triple meaning, I guess. We've probably all heard about the infamous audio tape of Trump's comment about grabbing the genitalia of women. And we're all kind of, by now, I think, familiar about his claims of Haitian immigrants eating cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio. It's interesting to me that he was kind of zeroed in on that particular town and that particular group of immigrants, knowing that, of course, that Kamala Harris's, I think it's her father, was Haitian. So no doubt that had some influence on his making this absurd claim. It was just bizarre statement. Well, the symbolism here should be pretty obvious, I think. Am I allowed to say this, Mike?
Of course.
Okay. This is called Supreme Fuck You. And basically, that's what our Supreme Court has been doing to us lately. Just saying to all Americans, fuck you. We're going to do it on our agenda. Nothing to do with the Constitution, nothing to do with you. It has to do with what we want. So, my opinion, the current Supreme Court has a personal agenda, personal goals that have nothing whatsoever to do with the mission they have been appointed to carry out. This piece is an oil painting with fabric over it and eggshells. It's called Cooked or Cracked, a choice. A choice to cook the eggs or break the eggs. Cook the fetus and let it be born, or crack the fetus and remove it. And that is a woman's choice. Certainly not my choice. I don't have that right. And this piece, I have to tell, this is, what is the title of this? Let me see. I have it written down actually to remind myself. Uh, oh,
Planning on the
planning.
drain.
Yes, planning down the drain. Um, and it's done with traditional drawing materials, charcoal, Conte, that sort of thing. Uh, but I've introduced some other elements, borrowing from people like Jasper Johns and Rauschenberg, who used everyday things sometimes that they combined with paints and drawing materials and whatnot. So there's some condoms here and some birth control pills, but it was nice when we can choose to get what we want.
So Fred, the show, are you satisfied with making a statement with it, or are you trying to like reach people and like get them to think or,
Well,
change
both.
their mind or
Well, both. I am certainly making a statement, but I do hope it gets people to think about these things. They won't necessarily agree with me. I understand that. Uh, we don't always agree with everybody else, but maybe it'll get them thinking a little bit about their own views. I know since the early well, since over the past decade or so, with all this been going on politically and socially in this country, I've had to look at my own thinking, my own views about things, and ask myself, are my views valid? Or are they legitimate? Had to ask myself questions about it, rather than just accepting that I'm right and everybody else is wrong. You know, Fred can sometimes be wrong. In fact, I remember a time back in 1987 when I was wrong. June of 1987, I was wrong.
just once,
Maybe twice.
nothing in between?
We won't talk about those. Too, too many of them.
Well, it's a powerful show. Thanks very much, Fred.
Well, thank you, Mike.
The show's up through November 10th. We hope people come down to check it out. Everything's also available on our website, ceruleanarts.com. Well, thanks again and have a great night.
Take care.